Hello and welcome to our post-Supreme Court of Indiana coverage. We just watched Richard Allen's lawyers and Judge Gall's lawyers present their arguments before the Supreme Court of Indiana, and we just witnessed this historical moment. Probably the first and only time this will ever happen in our lives anyway. If you're a lot younger, there's probably a lot more time for you. But this is going to be our commentary and our recap and our thoughts of today's hearing with the Supreme Court of Indiana regarding the three issues that Richard Allen's lawyers were fighting for, which is Richard Allen's lawyers to be reinstated, Baldwin and Rosie, that's their names. 2, to have Judge Gall recused from the case. And 3, to have a speedy trial within 70 days. They're the three things that the Supreme Court will be deciding on in the case of Richard Allen.
But importantly, what are we drinking today? This was a winery we went to up in the Finger Lakes a few years ago. We got these for the beach. They are really cool things just to throw into your cooler. This is Point of the Bluff Vineyards, but their wine series is called Hangar 17. So there you go, babe. This is what we'll be
Curtis White.
Yeah, this is the Curtis White. This is what we'll be drinking during our commentary here, and then we'll get into a little bit more depth of it at the end of the video.
And Pete will be doing most of the commentary because I spent pretty much the whole time we were watching it screaming at the TV, being anxious, reading the comments in the Defense Diaries live stream. If you're going to follow the case, I highly recommend Defense Diaries. Yeah. They know their stuff. And the man in the couple, Bob Mata, he was in the court today. So, but his wife and some guy named Jay covered it not from.
And unlike us, they're lawyers, but we do have our opinions as laymen out there. But my first thoughts on the hearing was the attorney. Well, we'll go in order here. So the first attorney that spoke was for the attorney for Richard Allen's team. I think his last name was Lehman. I'm not sure what his first name was. He seemed very chatty. He didn't, I've seen a couple Supreme Court hearings, not Indiana State Supreme, but you know, the federal Supreme Court. So I pretty much knew what to expect. It almost seemed like he didn't know what to expect. He seemed like he was unprepared for the questions that were going to come his way. He got into the weeds a lot. He was very, very chatty. He could have condensed his answers down to make them more clear. But the judge, what was weird was that the judges actually tried to get him back on track at one point because he was just going off the rails. He was just all over the place.
What was he going off the rails and all over the place about? I think maybe elaborate on that a little bit more.
They caught him using a word at the very beginning where he was claiming that she did not have the jurisdiction to make the decision that she made. As soon as he said the word, I'm like, what? She's the judge. Mm-hmm. That's what her job is. Now, maybe her decision is not correct, but she has the right to make that decision. I mean,
well, jurisdiction actually comes from
right.
Judge and judicial.
Exactly.
And then it went off the rails for at least 2 minutes. Like
right.
that, they got into that whole semantics thing, which really, to me, was a waste of time.
It was a total waste of time, and it was time that he could have used more judiciously in other areas.
And funny you mentioned he got into the weeds.
Oh, we'll get into that in this. Yeah.
Oh, wheat.
Yeah,
if you have a gluten intolerance, this was not the thing for you to watch.
I will get to that when we get into yes. Judge Gall's team. But so he didn't seem like he knew what was going to happen. When you go into these hearings, you almost have to prepare yourself as somebody who's going on the stand and going to be questioned by the opposing team. So like if you're a defendant and you're the defendant and you're going on and you're going to be questioned by the prosecution, they prepare for that over and over and over again. What are the questions that could possibly be asked? He didn't seem to know. So that's what she was mainly, I mean, everybody was screaming at the TV, I think, that was watching it, because we're like, this guy's blowing it. This guy is truly blowing it. But what I have noticed when it comes to these hearings is it's not so much what they say, the lawyer says. What you need to pay more attention to is what are the judges asking the lawyer. And once they got him away from that track and got it back towards the meat of the motion, it seemed like their biggest concern was an appeal down the road. How is that going to set this up? Like if we make this decision one way, and one point that was interesting, I thought that was brought up by the judges, was they asked him, okay, so what you're asking us to do is to put the lawyers back on the case. If we do that, after the trial and he's convicted, can he then say that, can he appeal the verdict on the basis of having incompetent lawyers? So it's like a big circle. So I knew, I could see where they were going. So that was one, I think that was probably, when they were questioning him, I think that was their biggest concern, was what is this going to mean for the appeals process?
It was the first lawyer I thought was very awkward. It was very uncomfortable. It was almost cringe.
It was.
But then it got better. Then the lawyers got worse.
Yeah. Thankfully for Richard Allen, he wasn't the worst lawyer in the room. So.
Sadly, no.
Sadly, no. So the other interesting thing we were screaming at the TV too is that each side gets 30 minutes. Now, Richard Allen's team can split that up any way they want to. They can take, if they want to do 15 minutes, let the other side go, and then finish up with 15 minutes. However they want to split it up, they're allowed to do that.
Because they get the final say.
Because they have the final, or they can have the final say if they want.
If they choose to, correct.
But they have that strict 30-minute timer.
Right.
And he was going down in so many different avenues that he didn't need to be going down. And then the judges were going off of what he was saying, were screaming, "Watch the time, watch the time." So you are going to run out of time, dude. You are not going to have any time left to finish up on the back end. And I think finally he realized it, and he got out of there with like 6 or 7 minutes left. So he was able to go again.
And you mentioned chatty, and that's funny because straight out the gate it was like, I felt like he was chilling. Like he was chilling like a villain and hanging like drapes just talking to them. Like it wasn't even like we were watching the Supreme Court.
Until they asked him a question.
Right, except for the judges. It was so weird. And I've never watched one before, so I was like, this is my virgin Supreme Court experience.
Like, why are they steamrolling him? I'm like, they do that to everybody.
Yeah,
that is what they do.
I thought they just gave their argument, and they sat and politely heard it. I had no idea it was going to be like that.
No, there's nothing polite about these hearings at all.
I was
the judges
schooled.
Go for
this
it.
teacher was schooled, man. That was for sure.
So then, up came Judge Gall's team. What was his name? Gutenheim or Guten?
Gutenheim. It sounded like a hot. It was think hot German hot dog brand.
Yeah, there you
that
go.
Was the name.
Yep. So he started off. I'm like, okay, now this guy seems a little more polished. He was very concise with his words. He referenced an actual case, the wheat case, which we will get into a little bit more.
You know who he reminded me of? Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
The Simpsons, yeah. He's sort of
Any
like,
Simpsons fans, it was like Mr. Burns. He kind of looked like a living corpse.
Yeah.
That's really big.
So he started off really well. I'm like, okay, this is not boding well for Richard Allen. First there was a buffoon on his side, and now we have a guy up here that actually seems to know what he's doing, or at least is acting like he's been here before. And then again, the judges started asking questions, and I swear to God, he referenced that wheat case 1,000 times. It was wheat this, and wheat that, and over here is a wheat, and over there is a wheat, and that's all the man would say. For 20 minutes, he went on about the weed case.
And then in the defense diaries chat, everybody's like, he said weed, LOL, weed, and after that, it started to sound like weed. Oh my, it was just the weed case.
And it got to the point where the judges were like, dude, this really doesn't apply here. You're sort of arguing the case for the other side. So what are you doing?
Because there really wasn't a case for him to reference, right? Except for the wheat case.
It was, exactly. That's the only thing he came up with was the wheat case.
That was the closest relative to what he was looking for, was the wheat case, right?
So they tried to get him off of that, and he just was not taking the hint. So that actually boded well for Richard Allen.
And then he flat out lied. What was the flat out lie?
Well, you were saying he was lying, but basically he was quoting what Judge Gall was saying, which was...
a lie.
Yeah, so...
If you quote a lie, it's still a lie.
And the funny part was the judges were pointing it out to him. They weren't letting him go down that road. They'd point out, okay, well, you're saying this, but this is what happened.
Not the OG liar isn't the only liar. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So that went poorly for that side. But it got worse. So Mr. Guggenheim, I think that's what his name was.
Shorter. Guggenheim or something.
Something. I wrote it down and I left it in the other room, of course.
The Guggenheim.
So he only took about 20 minutes. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Miss Sanchez.
Sanchez, okay.
Well, oh my God, she was worse. She, of the three lawyers in the room, she was obviously, I don't know if she's a bad lawyer, but you could just tell, even before she started speaking, that she was just so nervous. And even before she said anything, like, this is not going to go well. She's too nervous already.
I'd have to declare her queen of the pregnant pause.
Because she had no idea what to say.
Everything was just a big, long, pregnant pause. Like, you could tell she was just reaching into the annals of her brain to find that answer. Yeah.
So basically, she took 10 minutes saying nothing. The funny part was, though, she got to the end and she made a mistake, and the buzzer went off. And the one judge goes, saved by the bell. And then the Chief Justice goes, no, you can answer. And when she was ready to walk away, and the look on her face when the judge said, you can answer, was like, crap. Do I really have to answer? Because basically she was, again, arguing for the Richard Allen side.
Right.
She brought up something, and it just was clear that it was arguing the wrong argument for them. So my takeaway from the hearing is
this your prediction, or is this just your commentary?
I don't know that I have a prediction yet.
Okay, because I have a prediction. Okay,
yeah, I don't know that I do, because knowing how these things go, the Supreme Court is not going to go by their gut. It's not going to go by public perception. It's not going to go by, oh my goodness, Richard Allen is sitting in jail and we need to get him, a hearing as soon as possible.
And the one justice did mention him, the female. She was the only female, right?
Right, yes.
The only female justice.
And she was the Chief Justice.
She was the Chief Justice,
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes.
Karen.
Yes, I named her Justice. She kind of had the Karen haircut. No offense, she seems like a lovely person, but she definitely had the Karen haircut. In fact, I debated going and getting this hairdo. I kind of liked it. But she brought that fact up, and I was really glad that she brought that up, because that needs to be out there, because Gall just keeps ignoring that and ignoring that and ignoring that, and now you've got two people saying the same thing as the old people.
However, the Supreme Court is not going to take any of that into account.
No, I agree.
They're going to go by case law strictly. Does this fit into, did this violate any case law? Does it fit into any case law? They are not going to make new law on this. I can guarantee you they're not going to go outside of what's already on the books to make new law. That's not going to happen. So, us being laymen, I don't know what the Indiana state laws are. However, just getting a feeling from the questions they were asking, I do believe that Baldwin and Rozzi are going to get reinstated in some capacity. Now,
Right.
that could be one of 3 or 4 different things. One, they could be say, okay, Richard Allen does have the right to choose his own lawyer. If they choose to represent him, they're going to be doing it on their dime. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is that they can reinstate them as the attorneys on record and for the state, so
And
that
they're
they're getting paid to do that. And then the interesting option, which is the wild card, which unfortunately I think is what may happen,
Me too.
is that they will get reinstated back into their former capacity. But then this will need to go to a hearing to determine if they should remain on the case. If they do that, that hearing will go in front of a different judge. It won't go in front of Judge Gall. And that judge will determine if there's enough evidence to remove them or if they should stay. So I guess if you want me to make a prediction, I think they're going to just flat out reinstate them and move on with life. But that's also probably the least likely outcome of what's going to happen. What do you think?
I think they're definitely going to be reinstated. I don't know in what capacity. There was a lot of mention of the Sixth Amendment. You just can't screw with somebody's Sixth Amendment
No.
rights. You just can't. I mean, that would be precedent setting. That would go to the Supreme Court of the United States and get shut down, I think, in a heartbeat. What I do think they're going to have to do is I think they're going to make them go back and have the hearings they should have had. So that would be the hearing for Baldwin and Rosie to be reinstated, because she never really had that hearing, as was
she
pointed
just
out.
they're
Right.
like, I can go out there and I can embarrass you in front of everybody, and you're going to go down, or you can just go ahead and.
We apologize. Amazon appears to be here with some of our new broadcasting equipment.
And our coon hound.
And our dogs are going, especially our coon hound. Yeah, our
Loves
coon hound.
when the Amazon truck comes.
Yeah, he's a big fan of the Amazon truck and baying, as you could tell,
Yes.
as are most hounds. Luckily, there's a little bit of lab in him, and he has both. And there's my Pomchi going off. Sorry about that. Shh. So I think that they will just be flat out reinstated. I don't know how. But I also think that they're going to have to do the hearings. They're going to have to do one hearing for her, one hearing for their reinstatement. I think the hearing for their reinstatement will just be they'll be flat out reinstated. They won't have to do pro bono. And then I think for her hearing,
Which was interesting because I thought that was going to be brought up during this hearing in
well,
front
they
of
did
them.
bring it up, right? It was discussed. Well, yeah, at the end, remember they asked the guy about the pro bono, and he tried
No,
not
I mean
to
about
go there.
Judge Gall.
Oh, Judge Gall. Yeah, that was never brought up.
It was never brought up. I had thought it was part of the
But it
filing.
is what they're hearing, and I don't think they're going to recuse Gall, because maybe at the hearing they might leave it up to other people to recuse Gall.
I don't think that's going to happen.
They're
either
not
way.
going to take that chance, because then you could just recuse any judge you want whenever. That would be a terrible precedent.
They did reference that at one point.
They did? Okay.
That it's just that's a road that nobody wants to go down.
Right.
I think they've been trying to give her avenues for an out. She was appointed to some new position, so hopefully she will take that as her cue to exit stage left and on a high note. Like,
In
I
my
got this
opinion-
brand new responsibility, I can't do both. But I don't see her doing that.
Plus she had the medical issues too, and
Wait.
there's been no report on her medical. We don't know if she's still working from home, right?
No.
I mean, we don't know any of that.
We have
so
no idea.
we thought maybe that would be the out, but that did not become the out. No.
No, not at all.
I just and another thing I want to point out that bothers me, and it would bother anybody who wasn't sure, convinced of his innocence or guilt. Well, of his innocence, I should say.
Doesn't matter. Right now he's innocent. He is innocent until
I
proven guilty.
understand that,
He needs to be afforded those rights.
But we're talking about the court of public opinion. In the court of public opinion, I think it's kind of divided. So this is going to take time. If they're going to do 2 more hearings, first we got to wait for their decision, which from what I'm hearing from the reports will be given quickly, but the documents will follow later. So the verbal decision will be given, but it'll take a while for the documents.
Right.
So if they're going to have to hold 2, so we got to wait for the decision. Then there's going to be the 2 hearings, and poor Richard Allen is still being held at Westville with, Screamin' and Libretto filed it. The guy's got an Odin tattoo on his face, right? It's filed. It's out there.
And
the
it's all
doc
over
is
his
out there.
Facebook page too.
The doc's out there. The picture, the images are out there. The whole shebang's out there, right? So, now he's going to be sitting around in prison, waiting and waiting and waiting, waiting and waiting and waiting. Like, I really am concerned about his mental and physical well-being,
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm hopeful that they'll just get reinstated. The only way this is going to happen quickly for Richard Allen is if Baldwin and Rousey get reinstated, Judge Gall continues on the case, and then they can move forward in 70 days. However,
do you think it will move forward in the 70 days? I don't think.
If Baldwin and Rousey and Gall, only if all the original players are still there. If there's any change, if the judges is changed, or if the attorneys are changed, then that is going to probably extend it further than what the October date is now.
I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell they're going to court in 70 days. I really wish they would for Richard Allen's sake. And I
think they will if all the original players are there.
And I don't think, like, we're not convinced of his innocence or guilt. I don't think you are from what we've talked. I can't speak for you. I should only speak for myself. But I think that there's something we haven't seen. I think there's a bombshell out there. Let me finish. There's a bombshell out there, and we just have to wait, There's something out there. I don't think it would be going to these proportions if there wasn't more than the public knew. But I could be wrong. There could be absolutely nothing. That PCA could be it. And ballistics, from what I know from teaching forensics and what you read, ballistics they do not stand up well in court, because you're going to have an expert to denounce the prosecution's ballistics. And juries don't know much about ballistics. Juries understand DNA, but they don't really understand ballistics.
Right.
So, so I'm not convinced either way. I don't know. I want to see what they got. I'm reserving my judgment.
Me too. But as I've said before to you, and this is what I'm looking at, the way I'm thinking about it is, if I were on the jury today, if I knew what I know now, and that's all I know, I would have to acquit him. There is too much other stuff out there with nothing physically linking him to this. However, if there's any type of DNA evidence, if they found any type of trophies in his home that would link him to the girls, then it's done. He's over. Send him off to whatever facility you want to, and do whatever you want to with him, whatever. But until that time, he needs to be afforded the rights of an innocent man, which all of us have those rights. We are innocent until proven guilty. So I'm reserving judgment. I'm hopeful that the prosecution has something that we don't know about. And I've said this before, we don't have the right as the public to know everything. It's not our right. We'd like to. It'd be great. But the only right that we don't have any rights with the public.
We have some.
We have none. But once it gets in front of then once it's presented at a trial, that's when all the information comes out, and then that's when we as the public get to review that information.
Well, we also have a right to see what they release to us too. A lot of times they will release documents.
No, they can't. But it's not our right.
But the trial itself and all the proceedings around.
All right, sorry about that, folks. Our camera went out on us, but I think we're back now.
So Peter had mentioned justice for the victims, and this trial, if Richard Allen is convicted and sentenced, that would be justice for the victims. But right now, there's no justice for the victims, because all this is a big cluster. You know what I mean? And if they don't do this right, it's never going to be about justice for the victims, because it's just going to keep going and going and going in the appeals process. You know what I mean? And then there is no closure for the poor families of these two. I mean, they were children at the time. They'd be in their 20s now, but they were children at the time. You know what I mean? So really, that's what the trial is about. Yes, the outcome will be about justice for Abby and Lee.
Right.
Plus, I also think the whole premise of the prosecution's case has been problematic from the start. No, it was this guy. No, it was this guy. No, it was that guy. No, it's this guy. Like, it's just been a mess from the beginning, and then all of a sudden, you ignored the fact that Richard Allen put himself there. You ignored the fact that he was wearing the clothes that a witness claims he had. You ignore the fact that he does resemble Bridge Guy in some ways, but 5 other dudes do too. You know what I mean? And then, you know, now, okay, we got an election, so all right, let's arrest this dude because we found an unspent round, you know? So I think it's just been a cluster from the beginning. And I think this is just the continuation of the cluster.
Yes, I agree. And just a little plug, in the coming weeks, I'm going to be doing some shorts on all of those other characters. Do a little bit on each one, just to refamiliarize ourselves with some of those characters and what their initial involvement was suspected to be, what it may have been. There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down.
You can just lose your mind going down the rabbit holes of this.
Yeah,
It's insane. There's so many players. There's so much stuff. Then there's the whole Odin angle, and you know, then there's all the stuff that went on in the courts, and then there's all the fighting amongst you know the podcasters and the YouTubers about all this stuff. Like it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's a hot mess. All aboard the Hot Mess Express. There's the Delphi case. So, anything else about the wine?
Yeah, just real quick, I think today went as expected. I don't think there was any bombshells. I originally thought that they were going to get reinstated one way or the other. Today, nothing made it change my mind at all. I think it's going to happen quickly, but how it's going to happen, I guess, is what's going to be determined.
Yes, and like we said, we're lay people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
But yes, about the wine.
About the wine.
Yes, it's all about the wine. These are, I mean, this is just really, really good dry wine.
It's got a little bit of a sweetness to it, in my opinion.
You think?
Yeah, it's a nice, like, just chill, smooth sipping wine.
Yeah.
Like, if you want, you know, but it definitely gives me, like, beach boat vibes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a semi-dry, so.
Yeah.
They give you the scale on the back. It tells you the scale of dry to sweet, which is very helpful if you're not, like, if you don't know a lot about wine, it really helps to know like the residual sugar of the wine and things like that. So if you'd like to know more about wine, we could definitely talk about that. But when we were just a wine channel, no one wanted to know about wine.
Exactly.
They want to know about Gypsy Rose and all that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's a nice sip. It's a sipping wine.
It's a
as
sipping
they
wine,
say.
and
Sipping wine.
If I remember correctly, the tasting room for this place overlooked the lake.
Yes, it did.
I believe.
Yep.
I know we just, I don't even think this was one of the wineries that we had on our list. I think we just were driving by and saw it and we pulled in. But yeah, we got a few 6-packs of these and we've been taking them to the beach, but thought this would be a good afternoon because it's only
Night and refreshing.
Yes, it's only in the, you know, we recorded this right after the hearing, so.
And if you're following the Delphi case, you certainly need a dose of light and refreshing.
Yes.
Because it's heavy and it is not refreshing.
So, Point of the Bluff Vineyards, Hangar 17, Curtis White, thumbs up.
All right, and we'll be seeing you for more Delphi coverage.
Yes,
because
definitely.
I'm sure this is
not the end.
This
it's
is only the beginning.
Exactly. And
cheers.
Yep. Cheers.